Yamat, they would read Vedanta Samhita, and it says, Lord Chaitanya says, my name will be chanted in every town and village. So, so what does that mean? I guess Prativite means India. Because they couldn't imagine that people in other countries, in China and Africa and Japan and Mexico and South America would be chanting the name of Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But we see that since Srila Prabhupada's visit to America, suddenly, within half a century or so, 50, 60 years or so, the movement has taken a root all over the world. So the basis of this movement is Harinam Sankirtan, or Krishna Nama Sankirtan, specifically chanting the name of Krishna. We know that there are various spiritual methods, and we also know that different ages progress according to the scriptures. We have Satya Yuga and Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga, which lasts for over 4 million years. And the human society is existing for that period of time. Then it repeats itself again and again and again and again, 1,000 times in one day of Brahma. So, of course, in terms of modern history and archaeology, maybe cavemen go back to a few 100,000 years, and Neanderthals maybe a little bit more than that or whatever. But we go back a few 100,000 years, and we don't even get 4 million years back. But according to the Vedic literature, we have a very different idea where we have 4 million years and the people were more advanced than we are now. So different concept of time and evolution of humans or whatever, and of human history. In any case, it starts out with a very refined spiritual method that is meditation, where you only use the mind, you don't have to do anything else. Which may be very difficult for most people nowadays, but in that age, that was common for everybody to be able to concentrate their minds and meditate on Vishnu. And as time progressed, people declined in their abilities. So therefore, in Treta Yuga, they got an external form of worship in the form of fire. So they did homas, or sacrifices, for Vishnu. In any case, the object is Supreme Lord, but method changes from purely mental to physical worship externally. That was Treta Yuga. But of course, the jump from internal to external is a little complicated. So to facilitate that, there were complicated procedures by which you had to worship the external form. And it was not a direct form. It was not the form of Vishnu. It was the form of fire. So Lord is represented by part of material nature, fire, but nevertheless it was Vishnu in there. So in order to actually worship Vishnu in that form, then it was a complex ritual. So this is the fire sacrifice. But as time progressed, people became more fallen, more disabled. So finally, prescription was, it's too difficult to have an abstract form or a form of nature for the Lord, so they made a form of a deity, a Vishnu deity. So they had deity worship as the form in Dwapara Yuga. Again, there was some ritual attached to it, because obviously we can't just worship any stone or whatever, so there was a whole procedure for making deities, installing deities, and worshiping deities. So a lot of rules attached to that. Still, people did that. However, 5,000 years ago, Kali Yuga started. So people have declined more. They have less abilities, less concentration, less ability to follow rules and rituals, and less ability of their minds, etc. So an easier process is prescribed. So we had the internal form, meditation, and an external form with deity, etc. In Kali Yuga, even that form of the deity is not so proper. So Nam Sankirtan, simply sound, is the form of worship. So this is the yajna for Kali Yuga. So of course, we find there are various groups in India. We have 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas and so many other Sampradayas as well, but Vaishnava Sampradayas, we have 4 main ones. But it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that Nam Sankirtan became the primary sadhana, the primary means of spiritual development, Nam Sankirtan. So this is Lord Chaitanya's contribution to make Sankirtan the simplest and also the most powerful means for spiritual advancement. Usually the simplest things we think, well, simple, so therefore like ABC in first grade or whatever, that's as far as it goes. If you want physics and complicated formulas, you have to do more than ABCs and 1, 2, 3, 4 and simple mathematics. But everything ultimately is based upon simple principles, addition, etc. But we may think that a simple thing like simply the name of the Lord, how can it give you the same result as meditation, which is like the yogis do meditation and get big results? How can simply chanting the name, even accidentally, give you such a great result? So maybe it's a little bit difficult for people to believe, and even Kali Yuga started difficult for people to follow, so they didn't do it. Until 500 years ago, Lord Chaitanya said, well, look, this is in the Bhagavad-Gita, this is in the other Puranas, this is in the scripture. Chanting the name of the Lord is the process for this age. And it actually gives the best result by the simplest possible means. It looks difficult to conceive of how is it possible, but nevertheless, this is what scripture says. So we have a very easy means introduced by Lord Chaitanya to get the highest goal of all. In one sense, the goal is the same, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. But, of course, Lord Chaitanya is none other than Krishna. So, with the mood of Radha. So, besides introducing the Yuga Dharma, he has another purpose. 1,000 times in the day of Brahma, we have a Kali Yuga, and in each Kali Yuga, there's Nam Sankirtan. So that's nothing so special. 1,000 times in the day of Brahma it happens. But what makes this particular Yuga with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu special is that it's not just Nam Sankirtan, it's Krishna's name. So Lord Chaitanya, because he's non-different from Krishna, he has the power to reveal Krishna to the people of Kali Yuga. He's the highest form, so a lesser form cannot reveal something higher. So we need a very powerful form. So the Lord Chaitanya is non-different from Krishna, so he can reveal Krishna to us. So therefore, he introduces not just chanting the name of the Lord, like Vishnu or Vamana, etc., but the name of Krishna as the primary name. So that's very special in itself. Additionally, of course, Lord Chaitanya has the mood of Radha. So he's Radha Krishna combined. Krishna by tattva, Radha by mood or bhava. So Lord Chaitanya also is empowered to reveal Radha. So not only do we chant the name of Krishna, we also chant the name of Radha. And Radha is there in the form of Hare. Hare, of course, stands for Hara. In Sanskrit, this is a vocative form. We say, when we're saying Krishna, we're saying, "O Krishna." We're calling out to Krishna. It's maybe the simplest grammatical form in Sanskrit with the least complications, because there's no verb attached to it at all, and there's no ending on the words. So it is Krishna. And you say Krishna, it means, "Oh Krishna." And then you make a sentence after that, "Please come here," or please eat or whatever like that. It's calling out to Krishna. So similarly, we call out to Hara, feminine form, Hara. So therefore, the feminine form of Hara is Hare. If we call out to Ganga, Ganga is also feminine form, a river. And when we call out to Ganga, it becomes Gange. And so Hara becomes Hare. So Hare means Radha, calling out to Radha. Oh Radha, oh Krishna, oh Rama. Of course, we say Rama means Ramchandra. Yes, it's true. Rama also means Vishnu. Rama means any form of the Lord, because it means one who gives enjoyment. So any form of the Lord gives enjoyment to his devotees. But it also applies to Krishna, because Krishna gives enjoyment to Radha. So therefore he's also Rama, as we say Radha Ramana. So Rama also refers to Krishna. So we're calling out Hare Rama Hare Krishna, it all means Radha Krishna. So anyway, we're calling out to both Radha and Krishna. And therefore we can realize not just Krishna, but Radha and Krishna. So therefore this yuga is very special, because we not only have kirtan, nam sankirtan, but through that nam sankirtan, with the names of Radha and Krishna, we can realize not just Krishna, but Radha and Krishna. So in other words, not just Krishna, but Krishna and Madhurya Rasa, which is the highest rasa. So this is what we say Lord Chaitanya is the most munificent. He is Mahavadanya, most compassionate. So one aspect of his compassion is to give what is most rare. Because generally the rare things are not given freely. They're very expensive. If you know what's rare around here, diamond. Diamonds are rare, and big diamonds, which are clear and maybe first quality, with no spots in them or anything, very, very rare. So they're not common, and they're very expensive. So if you want one, probably you can't afford it. Only a very wealthy person can do that. So in that sense, they're rare, not available to everybody on the street. If you want diamond, you take artificial diamonds, so everybody can get those. Imitation diamonds. So similarly, the love of Radha and Krishna is the highest thing. We have, of course, in spiritual world, we have Vaikuntha and all the different lokas like that, and you have Ayodhya like that, and then finally at the top we have Goloka, and then at the top of Goloka we have Radha and Krishna. So that's the very highest realization in spiritual life. So it's rare also. It's not offered all the time. So if you look at Bhagavatam, throughout the Bhagavatam, from beginning of the day of Brahma all the way up to when Krishna appears, they're all worshiping Vishnu. When Krishna appears, finally we get something different. And even when Brahma sees that, he's a little confused. Is this really the Supreme Lord or not? So to worship Krishna and accept Krishna once he comes is also very difficult for people. David has had difficulty understanding his nature. Indra also has difficulty understanding his nature. So we're just speaking of ordinary people on earth. So therefore, very rare. Krishna himself is rare. Radha Krishna even rarer. But, and of course, rare in the sense that Krishna himself doesn't want to reveal this to everybody. And also difficult for us to even comprehend. Even if he gives it to us, we don't know what it is. So we need some easy access to this. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the person who is eager to give it and not keep it as a secret, because he's not different from Krishna. So he can reveal that secret if he wants to. And of course, the other aspect of it not being rare is that Lord Chaitanya is willing to give it to unqualified people. Because most people in Kali Yuga are not qualified, but he's willing to make them qualified to receive the highest treasure of all. So that's the compassion or the Mahaprabhu nature of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He does that. So we're getting something very, very rare. At the same time, simple, no qualification, because Lord Chaitanya is so merciful. Of course, the name itself is merciful in that sense. Any name of the Lord doesn't require qualification, and it has power in it. So the name of Narayan has power in it, even if chanted accidentally, as in the case of Ajamil. Chanting the name of Narayan accidentally, Ajamil destroyed all of his karmas. The Yamadutas could not touch him. Yeah, they said, well, look, he's so sinful. And the Vishnu says, no karmas. But he said he committed all the sinful activities all through his life, and we saw them all. What's wrong? And they said, well, he chanted the name of Narayana. They said, well, so what? He chanted the name Narayana, but he didn't even have devotion. He just named the son Narayana. How can that destroy all the sins are there? And the Vishnu says, no, that is the power of the name. Vishnu says, anyone who chants the name, he is free of all karmas. And the Yamaduta cannot touch him. No more karmas. So even though he accidentally chanted the name of Narayan, all karmas were gone. So that was the power of just Vishnu's accidental name, to destroy all your karmas. If you destroy all your karmas, what happens? Liberation. He was qualified for liberation because he had no karmas. How is that possible? Because Gyanis and Yogis will strive for thousands of years to get liberation, and Ajamil is a sinful person who just names his son Narayana, and he gets liberation instantaneously. No effort at all. That is the power of the name. Of course, the devotees chant the name also with devotion, with intention, not accidentally. But because they have a little knowledge, they're not trying to get liberation, because we regard liberation as worse than hell. So therefore, we strive for a higher goal, prema. So accidental chanting will not give that. We shouldn't think, I'll just accidentally chant and then I get the best results from chanting Hare Krishna. No. If you want prema, that can't happen. You need some knowledge. Okay? So Harinam is independent of everything, but if we want prema, we do need some knowledge of some sort. So that's why Srila Prabhupada wrote books. So we get a little knowledge also. Some people not much interested in philosophy. Why, just chant the holy name and feel Krishna, whatever. But books are there. And we see that even Lord Chaitanya, he's absorbed in ecstasy, Radharani and Kirtan or whatever, but he was hearing Bhagavatam all the time. What did he tell the Goswamis, who were also absorbed in ecstasy? Write scriptures. So, Harinam is there, but we also need some knowledge, and the knowledge comes from the scripture, specifically Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore we do need some, if we want prema, that is. If we don't want prema, fine, we just accidentally chant, we can get liberation. But if we want prema, then we have to get some knowledge. Fortunately, the knowledge is not, we can say so, technical. If you want to have technical knowledge, it's there also, but that's not the emphasis. The knowledge also, like the name, is also very sweet. Krishna is sweet, the name is sweet, and the knowledge is also sweet. So that is why Bhagavatam is the main scripture, because it is a sweet scripture. And why is it sweet? Because it concerns Krishna. And everything about Krishna is sweet. So the name is sweet, but because we're covered over with ignorance, we can always misconceive. Oh, yeah, sweet Krishna is a nice name or whatever, but we don't know who Krishna is or what Krishna is. That's the problem. So therefore, we do need some guidance about understanding who is Krishna. So Bhagavatam will give that information to us. One type of knowledge is, well, what does he look like? What is his form? So Bhagavatam gives us a picture of that. Using words and verses, we have very nice descriptions of the form of Krishna, the beauty of Krishna. So when we say the word Krishna, then we can think of that form of Krishna and appreciate that form and make that our goal. So that knowledge of the form is very, very necessary, because otherwise we may fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I will reach the final spiritual goal and there is no form at all. And this becomes merging in impersonal Brahman, which we condemn also. So we do need some knowledge so to get in the right direction. The name can give anything you want. If you want material benefits, fine. You can go to Svargaloka by chanting Hare Krishna. But of course we know that's temporary, so we reject that. By chanting the holy name, you can also get liberation, as in the case of Ajamil, very easily available. But we also don't want that. So what should we strive for? Prema. But to get prema, even we need some knowledge. Otherwise, we get stuck on the lower level in this chant Hare Krishna to get some material benefits. True, it can do that, no problem. But Lord Chaitanya is taught giving the highest treasure, love of Radha and Krishna. So we need some knowledge to fix our goal as prema, not material benedictions and not liberation. So that is also described. What is that prema? That's also described in Srimad Bhagavatam. We have to have some knowledge of where we're going and what our goal is. If we give a name to a goal, but we don't know what the goal is at all, then that's also pretty useless. We have the name of Krishna, but if we don't know the form of Krishna, useless. So we have to get some details. Form of Krishna. We realize Krishna, what happens? So prema is the goal. That's described. We see Krishna and the devotees of Krishna and how they relate to others, each other in the spiritual world. Then we can understand the selfless nature of the love at the stage of prema. And we also need the means to get to that final stage. And so that is the process of Bhakti Yoga. There are other processes. There's Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Astanga Yoga. They're all scriptural, so we cannot disrespect them, and people follow them. But they are meant to be processes for people that do not have faith in the process of bhakti. So let them do that. It's good for them. It helps purify them. But if we have faith in the process of bhakti, then that we can directly go to the process of bhakti. Other processes arise from material gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. So even jnana comes from sattva guna itself. It's not beyond that. Bhakti is part of Krishna's internal energy. It's Sarup Shakti. It comes from the spiritual world. So bhakti is a completely different process from any other process. So easily, obviously, if it comes from the spiritual, it can take us there. If you do jnana, it comes from sattva guna. Where can it take you? It can get you to the top of sattva guna. It can't get you beyond that. If you want liberation, you also need the mercy of Krishna. So many people get to the top of sattva guna and they fall down again because they don't accept the form of Krishna and worship him. So anyway, Bhagavatam will give us this knowledge of who, what's what, and whatever, position of Supreme Lord and Jiva, etc. It gives us knowledge of the form of the Lord, gives us the goal, prema, and gives us the means to get to the goal. Those are the things. That much knowledge we need. We don't have to have the detailed knowledge, but at least some idea of just what we're doing and where we're going properly. And by doing that, then we're able to avoid aparadhas or offenses. And if we do that nicely, then we can progress towards that goal of praying simply by chanting the name. So that's the process which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced. And there is no qualification as in other processes. The qualification, no qualification in the sense that even Ajamil or anybody can chant the name, fine. But if we want prema, there is a little qualification. That means faith. We do have to have some implicit trust in the words of Scripture and believe what it says, so that we can get that knowledge of our relationship with Krishna, and form of Krishna, and prema, and method. If we don't have the faith, we don't accept it, we're not going to follow anything. So we should have faith in the Scriptures, Bhakti Scriptures, and what they say, and then we're willing to follow. Well, if you want to follow, then we practice Bhakti. So that's the qualification for serious practice in order to attain prema. We need that faith. Now, faith also is not mental. It's not just here in your mind. It's like Bhakti itself is spiritual, coming from spiritual growth. Faith also is something that has to manifest within the jiva, within the atma, not in your mind. So it's not a superficial fair faith. It may take many births for the jiva to develop that trust and faith in the Bhakti Scriptures and Supreme Lord. So when it happens, then quickly we can advance. With that faith, then we start listening to Scripture, we can follow it, and start chanting, etc. So it's very good fortune when that faith arises and we get exposed to Bhakti and we begin to practice. But it may be rare, because not everybody's going to get that faith. How does faith arise? Again, it's not a material process. It does not arise through gunas. Does not arise through sattva. Does not arise through karma yoga. Because if it's spiritual, these are all material things. And so some faith itself is spiritual and has to arise from the spiritual world also, in a sense. But because it's the beginning of Bhakti, and if we don't have faith, we can't practice Bhakti. How do we get the faith? So the process is that other devotees already have the seed of Bhakti and have developed it, so they have the Shakti of Bhakti in them. So the devotees are able to spread that Bhakti to others. Even if they don't have faith, they can be exposed to Bhakti without preaching, because preaching to the faithless is offense. So you can't preach to them. But you can expose them to Bhakti. And they can hear the name, they can take prasad, they can see the form of Jagannath or whatever like that. They don't know what it is. They just eat and look and say, whatever. They don't know. But it affects the jiva. Everything affects the jiva. So Bhakti in any form, even accidental Bhakti, will affect the jiva. And will affect them positively. But of course, it's a little bit accidental also, so it's not repetitive, it's only accidental. So maybe once or twice in a lifetime, for 20 lifetimes, you get this accidental Bhakti, if you're fortunate that devotees are around, and then suddenly that accumulates and it becomes faith. And then you have, yes, I accept the truth about Krishna, I accept the Scriptures, etc. So it may take a long time, but it depends on devotees, mercy of devotees. And they're just distributing the Bhakti, and the Bhakti comes from Swarup Shakti of Krishna. So again, it's all coming from spiritual world ultimately, through the mercy of devotees. So if we get that chance, and we get the faith, very good. Somehow we've got that Agata Sukriti over many, many births to accept the principles of Krishna consciousness, and then we can start developing. So very, very good fortune. So there's two ways of spreading out the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. One, of course, is the accidental method, where we just expose everybody. And that's what we do in the Rath Yatras and Sankirtan, let everybody hear. We don't have to necessarily preach to them. And then those that do have faith, then we can actually encourage them by giving knowledge, and encourage them to reading books, etc. Two ways. And both are necessary for the expansion of Lord Chaitanya's movement and spreading his mercy. So we follow those two methods, then people eventually will get that mercy, they'll get the faith, they'll begin to develop, and what is supposed to be very rare becomes more common for everybody. So that's we're fortunate to get the seed of Bhakti, to get the faith, to get the seed of Bhakti, and to develop and chant the holy name, etc. And our endeavor is to also spread it to others. So Lord Chaitanya's movement is said to be twofold. One is to develop a taste for the name ourselves. We do our personal sadhana to realize Krishna in the name by chanting constantly with devotion and no apparatus. But the second aspect is to give out the mercy of the name to other people, which we do in two ways. One is expose them if they don't have faith, and to give them the name and encourage them to get knowledge and to chant the holy name. Yeah? So in these ways we become instruments of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to make what is most rare, that is Radha and Krishna, available to all the human jivas in the material world. Okay. Any question then? Yes. Who's?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've heard someone say that we can also think of the stages of bhakti from Shraddha to Nishta as stages of faith as well.
Yeah.
Thinking that Nishta is more like conviction. I'm just trying to think of English words that then represent faith more. So
Okay.
Shraddha to faith. What are your thoughts on like thinking of it like that?
Yeah. Well, faith is the qualification for beginning bhakti. So Jiva Goswami says that if it's a qualification, it cannot be the process of bhakti, but it's qualification for bhakti. So the qualification cannot be the actual process. So it's the qualification for bhakti. But at the same time, we also know that the faith does not disappear. The qualification doesn't disappear. The qualification becomes more as you progress. So in Vaidhi Bhakti, we have three stages of, or three grades of faith. One is Komala Shraddha, very kind of weak faith. And that is related to lack of knowledge. Yes, we want to practice bhakti, so we have faith, we accept scripture, whatever, but we don't have too much knowledge of scripture itself. So we're a little bit shaky. And if people challenge us and say, why are you worshiping Krishna? Krishna's not the only God. I worship this form, worship that form, whatever. Then we get a little doubt, whatever, and stop the bhakti, whatever. So that's the first step. We have faith, but it's not very steady. Second type, or madhyama, is we do have some knowledge of the scripture. So based on that, our faith becomes a little stronger. And if people argue with us or whatever, we may not be able to answer properly because we're not thoroughly in knowledge, but at least our faith is steady and we do not give up the process. Third, or the uttama stage, the best stage, is we have deep knowledge of the scripture combined with logic. Not atheistic logic, but logic in pursuance of bhakti. So we can reasonably explain concepts of God, Krishna, bhakti, prema to people so that they can accept it based on scripture, but presented in a reasonable manner. So this person who has thorough knowledge of scripture, his faith also is much deeper, and therefore he's able to convince people better. So in other words, the faith does develop. It's not just faith, but faith continues as we do our bhakti and we get more knowledge of scripture, we practice more bhakti. So it develops through these different stages of anartha, nivritti, nistha, sakti, etc. It gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
So would it be fair to say that it's almost like, in English terms, could be some sort of blind faith or leap of faith that develops into more reasonable faith?
Yeah, we can say that, but of course we don't want to call it blind faith even in the beginning because, of course, we can say faith not imposed by force, definitely not, because it's something that arises over many births through exposure, that's all. And not because people force you, simply because you took prasadam or something like that. So nobody's forcing you to believe anything. So in that sense, it's not blind faith. You can say it's a natural faith that arises in the jiva, but it's not very strong. in the beginning. But when we study the scripture and we can use our intelligence and whatever of that, and we practice bhakti, then that faith becomes stronger and we're more convinced. But it's not coming from the mind, it's not imposed from external, from somebody else. It's actually coming from the Atma itself.
Thank you.
Maharaj, there's one point that Mahaprabhu has given us this holy name to go back to God. The second point, he said every name of Krishna is equally powerful. So if somebody just chants Radha Krishna instead of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, will they also go back to God?
Technically, yes. The name, we see even the name Narayan chanted accidentally, you got all the sins removed instantaneously in 1 second. So you got liberation right there. So, and if you chant the name of Narayan, you go to Narayan. If you chant the name of Rama, you can go to Rama. Same rules, of course. You shouldn't have uparads like that. Yeah, so you could chant any name of Krishna, Gopal, Govinda, whatever. And we see Lord Chaitanya also in some of his kirtans, Gopal, Govinda, Ram, Shrimadu, Sadhani, chanting all the names also. So this is all Nam Kirtan. At the same time, the name of Krishna is also special because it contains all the other names of Krishna in one sense. The word Krishna itself, Krish means source of everything. So in other words, he is the final cause of everything, as we say. He is the final cause, the Adi Karna Karnam, the cause of all causes. And Na means the source of all bliss. So that word Krishna includes all aspects of Krishna, all of his powers and all of his sweetness, all of his bliss. So that's considered to be the number one name. So we can chant all the names, yes, and we can always realize, if we chant Krishna's name, we can realize Krishna.
Then why is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra?
So we could chant any name of Krishna, and if we say Krishna, 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 also there we do have the thing, Krishna, 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 hey, Rama, Raghava, etc. We have that. So you could just chant that name also. That's still Krishna Nam Sankirtan, the Yuga Dharma, etc. Lord Chaitanya is also given this particular Hare Krishna mantra, and that has been, we can say, instituted by the Goswamis, and since that time, so we see all the Gaudiyas there with the bead bags, and they're all chanting Hare Krishna, not Krishna, 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 or something like that. They could, but they wouldn't be following Lord Chaitanya's example, that's all. So because we're following Lord Chaitanya, he put this as the primary mantra for our japa. But you could, when we do kirtan, we can chant all the names also. People do that. Bhakti-Vinod has written songs like Jai Radhamala was actually names of the Lord also. That's a kirtan, Nam Kirtan song with names of Krishna. So we have those names also. But for our main sadhana and japa, then we chant Hare Krishna. Is to follow Lord Chaitanya. And of course, because it contains, second, of course, it is Radha Krishna, not just Krishna. That's the second. Third is, it has Shruti reference, Vedic reference as well, because it's in the Kali Santana and the Upanishads. So then it gives us some, probably say, authority of the Vedas behind it by being from Shruti, from Upanishad. So then that's another reason why it could be special, because it has that authority behind it.
So the Nam Japa of Radha Krishna would also still be beneficial.
It could, but it should be. We're following Lord Chaitanya, so he indicated this, and the Goswami said we're following their footsteps, so we follow that. But it's effective also.
Just wanted to know, why is it easier to build bond or attachment or faith jiva to jiva? We can build faith with friends, family, and we will trust them with our lives very easily over a very small period. But yet we find the faith, as you mentioned, takes a long time, and is jiva to atma to paramatma. It takes so long. Why is that difference?
Well, because we're establishing a spiritual relationship, not a material relationship. And we are stuck in the material relationship and identifying with the material body. So to establish a spiritual relationship, we have to understand we're not the body, and the Atma is relating to another spiritual body, which means we do have to change our whole conception of our relationships beyond the body. So it's a struggle because we're so much ingrained in our bodily conception, life after life, for countless lives in the past. So to get rid of that ahankara and all that identity is going to take some time. In the meantime, we do want happiness. So the ultimate happiness is relationship with Krishna, we call rasa, which gives rise to eternal bliss. In the material world, the jiva still is a jiva and still requires the bliss. But then he can't get that bliss because he's covered over and he doesn't really want to admit to the existence of a Supreme Lord. So he wants the bliss. So therefore, the only way he can do that is establishing a material relationship. So therefore, we develop material relationships in this world as a substitute for the spiritual relationship. But that's conditioned in us, birth after birth after birth. And we keep trying for these relationships in the material world. And once it's established, that's difficult to give it up. It's a bad habit, but once a bad habit is established, difficult to give it up, like an addiction. Once you got the alcohol addiction, it's very difficult to give it up. Once you got the addiction to the material world and all the relationships and the happiness we get from, difficult to give it up.
Thank you.
Right, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was able to inspire plants and animals and gave them prema instantly by just chanting. So why is Bhagavad-Gita essential for prema?
Why is?
Bhagavad-Gita, Jnana essential. Knowledge about Bhagwan?
Yeah, why we need?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, why we need that, yeah. The animals and the plants, of course, get benefit from hearing the name or whatever. They really can't chant it very well, especially the plants can't chant at all from our point of view anyway. Maybe the dog in Lord Chaitanya's pastor, did he chant? Did he chant? He took prasadam, I know that. He barked maybe. So he really couldn't chant either. So they're quite limited in how much real sadhana they can do. So that depends on mercy itself. And of course the Supreme Lord, because he's so merciful, he can give mercy to anybody and they can develop prema or whatever. So Putana, who was an aparadi trying to murder Krishna, she gets mercy and goes to the spiritual world also. So the Lord can do this. But for normal jivas in the material world, we do require to go through this whole process of sadhana as a human being. There's exceptions with the Lord giving, Gajendra mercy or whatever, all this, but generally, it's a human being that has enough intelligence to understand scripture, take to the process, etc. So, but in doing that, we do need to have some knowledge as well as simply a process in order to do it properly. As with anything in the material world, there's processes, but you have to have some knowledge behind the process to do it properly. Well.
So as you've mentioned about like levels with faith, and then you're talking about sadhu sangha, are there levels to sadhu sangha? Like, what type of level should we be aspiring to? What would that look like?
Well, of course, these sadhu sangha is also one of the parts of angas of bhakti, one of the types 64 angas of bhakti mentioned in Nectar Devotion. There's sadhu sangha and kirtan and shravana and archana and other processes, many processes. And they're actually all eternal. So we chant now, we chant in the spiritual world. We remember Krishna now, we remember Krishna in the spiritual world. We worship Krishna now, we worship in the spiritual world. So in that sense, there's no evolution of the process. It's always process and it's spiritual by nature, it's eternal. But we do progress in bhakti, so all of these angas also progress in one sense from impure to pure. So we chant in the beginning, we're not very good at it and we're inattentive, and as we progress it becomes pure, and then we get to ruchi, we get more taste for it and more realization, and it becomes non-different from Krishna in bhava stage. So it's similar with all the things like sadhu sangha, etc. We begin, because we're covered over, we don't get too much advantage from that association. As we advance in bhakti, practice these processes, then with less coverings, then we can take more advantage of it. So the process becomes more powerful for us and more relishable for us as we advance. So we can say that like sadhu sangha, like any process of bhakti, is we start at a stage and we go through an arjuna vritti, nishta ruchi, sakti bhava prema. So all the processes are going to be reflected there also in higher and higher stages.
mentioning that the process of dhyana is coming from mode of
Sattva,
sattva. Does it mean that the other two processes, which karma and yoga, coming from ignorance and passion?
Well, yeah, karma yoga is coming from Rajug and Tamal, and for people who are very attached. So therefore, Artha, Dharma, Kama is basically the root thing for them. And for Gyanis and Yogis, it's moksha. So the moksha comes out of sattva, and the processes themselves arrive from sattva, which means that none of these processes in themselves can give too much. So in order to do karma yoga properly, even that, we do have to worship the Lord. So that's why Prabhupada also mentions when you do the yajna, you have to include worship of Vishnu also. Even if you're doing karma yoga and whatever, worshiping the Devatas, you have to worship Vishnu also. Otherwise, you're not going to get to Svargaloka even. Huh? And if you want liberation from jnana, you cannot offend the Lord. If you offend the Lord, you fall. You don't get it. You don't reach the final stage, you fall. So even in jnana, to do it properly, you do have to respect the Lord at least. Oh, please, Lord, give me liberation, and worship Him nicely, and say, I'm not going to offend you in any way. If you start offending and say, okay, the Lord is there, yeah, we'll worship, but He hasn't got a real form ultimately, then you offend the Lord, then you can't get liberation. In other words, liberation ultimately depends not on the process, because if it's sattva gun, it can only give you sattva gun. To get liberation, you need something beyond liberation. Brahman cannot give you that because it has no mercy. Brahman has got no form, no qualities, no activities. It's just there. So it can't give any mercy even. It's not compassionate. The only one that can give mercy is Supreme Lord. He can give the mercy to get liberation. Yeah.
Maharaj, first I'd like to thank you for a wonderful class. And my question, the topic, a lot of the conversation's been on Shraddha. So Rupa Goswami said Ado Shraddha, Ado.
Yeah.
So that Ado, it's explained that it's an initial contact. And in Bhakti Sandarbha 186, I'm studying your translation. There, Srila Jiva Goswami says that sadhu sangha is with a mahat. And then he explains in 187 that there are three types of mahats. Bhagavad Prasad Deha Prap, Nidhu Kasoy, Muchit Kasoy. So that samskar that is central to the Sukriti that develops into Shraddha, could you describe or explain something about what is that samskar that's coming? And it seems that it specifically has to come from a mahat. He says that you have like the two mahats, one from the personal school, one from the personal school. And according to which samskar you get, you'll be inclined towards that path. I wonder if you could speak about that. What is the nature of that samskar?
You're talking about the Sukriti part of it, or afterwards?
No, Ado. So meaning that at a particular point, the jiva gets an impression from a mahat. But then still Sukriti is developed, and then Shraddha comes from association.
Which could be in previous lifetimes.
Yeah, it could be Praktan or Adunik.
Yeah. So then what's the question?
Praktan, that association, that impression that's coming from the Mahat.
Yeah.
What is that? And does it really have to, it seems that Srila Jiva Goswami is saying that it specifically has to come from a Mahat. And then he explains the three types of Mahat. If you could just clarify that for me.
So in other words, the Agata Sukriti itself would have to come from a great devotee. Is that what you're saying?
Not all Agata Sukriti, because Agata
Okay,
Sukriti,
at least one part of it.
the impression, the samskar.
Yeah. Well, actually, every let's say every Agata Sukriti from any devotee, let's say you take prasadam or whatever, it's going to create some impression on the jiva. Otherwise, will be the power of prasadam or whatever. So therefore, everything is going to create an impression. Of course, if it's a great devotee, then it's got more power in it, and therefore the Agata Sukriti, we can say, is a greater impression. Like that. So maybe that's what he means Mahat, that it's a great impression. Somebody gives you a great impression, which helps you develop more quickly. Otherwise, it would be a very slow process if you just got accidental and the devotees were like Kanishkas or whatever, or lower Madhyamas or whatever.
Yeah, because low madhyamas and kanishtas are generally not described as mahats.
Yeah. So I'm saying that everything has an effect, but obviously the greater the devotee, the greater the effect.
So I'm asking another question. That term adhyata sukriti, if I'm translating it right, it means like unknowingly doing something good.
Yeah, unknowingly getting the benefit of bhakti.
Okay.
The sukriti doesn't mean a pious activity, a normal pious activity. Here it means an act of bhakti. So unknowingly you get the effect of prasadam or whatever. You don't know it's prasadam, but you eat it anyway or whatever like that. It's not because I know it's prasadam, I'm eating it.
Yeah. I remember it, I think it was in Chaitanya Shikshamrita by Bhagwan Thakur, where it was saying that someone knowingly or unknowingly does some sort of devotion, and that causes some satisfaction at the level of the heart, and that's what starts the process of faith.
But if knowingly you do the devotion, it looks like you already have faith. That's the whole problem. So if you don't have faith, you wouldn't do it knowingly. You may avoid it, in fact. In other words, you avoid devotees, it's too noisy or whatever like that. So if you don't have faith, it's a little difficult to get contact with devotees, because if you see them, you'll avoid them. So then they have to secretly somehow engage you in bhakti.
Okay.
So Maharaj explained earlier about how in this section we have Mahaprabhu, so we have Krishna now. So I've read by Rupa Goswami how in other Kali-yugas we'll have different incarnations, Shaktivation Jivas who spread their version of the holy name. So is there any way, can you think of where we can understand about other incarnations that come during Kali-yuga?
Other incarnations?
During Kali-yuga, as in like...
In our particular Kali-yuga?
No, this Kali-yuga is Mahaprabhu.
Okay, yeah.
But other ones I've read that is like, the color of green, blue, Shaktivation Jivas. I'm just curious as in,
No, as for Kali Yuga, well, actually, all of the Yuga avatars are there, and the Yuga avatars are considered to be Shaktivesh. So in Kali Yuga, the normal Kali Yuga avatar would be Shaktivesh, because other avatars, of course, may be exceptional, but in Kali Yuga particularly, it says that the Lord does not appear in Kali Yuga; he's Tri Yuga. So therefore, if he's going to appear, well, how can he appear if he's not supposed to appear? So therefore, the idea is Shaktivesh. So therefore, Buddha and Kalki and the Kali Yuga avatar would be a Shaktivesh. In the case of Lord Chaitanya, he is Supreme Lord himself. Not only that, he's not different from Krishna, but he hides the form. So that makes him like beyond the Tri Yuga concept of not being the Supreme Lord, because he hides himself. So he's Chanda avatar. But other yugas, of course, they could be, I think they're expansions from the Manvantara avatar, the other ones. But the Shaktivesh avatar is the Kali Yuga, would be a Shaktivesh avatar. It usually used to be black, I think. Blackish color.
Maharaj, you were mentioning about the Mahamantra. So we focus on Hare Krishna and Rama. And Rama, we can meditate on Balaram, Ramachandra.
One could, yeah.
So is this concoction? Like if we meditate on Nandara, then can the Hare, can we
then you have
reference Jangama?
Then you would have to do that, yeah.
Is that Rasa Bhas or is that?
No, it's not Rasa Bhas, but generally we're going for Radha Krishna as the highest, because Lord Chaitanya did that. So I think our Dhyan Chandra Goswami and Gopal Guru, when they commented, and they say, okay, let it be. Rama means one who gives enjoyment to Radha. But technically Rama can mean so many things. It can mean Parsaram also.
It's not prohibited.
Not prohibited, but as for us, then our tradition is to take it as, Krishna. Or you could have Sita Ram or whatever also. So.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Just continuing from what Mahaprabhu asked. We've been hearing in lectures in the past, because I've been in this movement almost 13 years now, that if we meditate on not Radha and Krishna, if when we are lucky, when Vishnu Doots will finally take us to Krishna Lok, whenever after so many millenniums, after millenniums, if we are attached to Rama Lok, then we'll be dropped there. And if we are attached to, for example, Sadashiv in that area, and if we are attached to Vaikuntha, we'll be ending up in Vaikuntha Lok.
Yeah.
So Maharaj, so it's important for us to follow what instructions we have been given our lineage, and just keep our focus on Radha and Krishna always on when we are chanting, or during the daytime as well.
Well, that's a general thing, because Lord Chaitanya is encouraging everybody to get the highest thing.
Yes.
But everybody may not do that. They have their own preferences. In Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, Murari Gupta was worshiper of Rama. He never gave that up. So he said, okay, fine, I know I'm going to force you. And Lord Chaitanya's, some of his followers were in Sakyarasa as cowherd boys. So they even had started a Raganuga in Sakyarasa, a little group like that. Nayanananda wrote a little book on that, how to develop Sakyarasa, following the cowherd boys and whatever like that. So it was there for some time. So therefore there is some room for individuality, but in general Lord Chaitanya is saying, okay, this is Madhurya Rasa is the highest, we should strive for that. But it's not that everybody's going to do that. So there's freedom for people to choose. I think one of the Srinivasacharya, I think it was, one of his followers, he wanted to worship, I think, Ramchandra or something like that. So then he called someone from South India to give him a different mantra like that, because he wanted a different form of worship. So, okay, worship.
So also Maharaj, just a little more confusion I wanted to get cleared from you. So if someone ends up in Ramaloka, so they just situated in there, or they decide to come back? Well,
that's what they want, that's what they get. And that's eternal.
Okay.
And it's satisfying.
And same with Vaikuntha, if they want to Vaikuntha,
they're eternally and they're satisfied. Jai and Vijay never leave the feet of Vishnu. They're always there. They never start switching around. Okay. And they're completely satisfied. It's all prema. Okay. And they're completely satisfied with that particular prema.
Thank you.
Also in South India, when Lord Chaitanya went to Sri Rangam, then there were the Venkat Madha and his brothers were there, and they would joke, and Lord Chaitanya would say, you worship Krishna. They said, no, we worship Vishnu like that. And he tried to prove to them Krishna is superior. It never changed, and he didn't force them also. So he left them like that. Of course, Gopal Bhakti, who was the son, he eventually became a devotee of Lord Chaitanya.
What happens to Lakshmi Maharaj? Because Lakshmi meditates on Krishna, and then I don't remember correctly, but I think she gets the opportunity to become one of the gopis or get into, no?
Can't get in. That's the whole story. She got the wrong form. The only way she could do it is get a gopi body, and then she's no longer Lakshmi anymore because she's a gopi. Of course, we say Radharani expands into Lakshmi, so in one sense they're the same. But in that form, as the queen of Vaikuntha, no, she cannot get into Goloka. It doesn't fit there. She's the wrong form.
After the Chaitanya Leela, isn't that then Vijay kind of got elevated to Goloka Vrindavan?
It's not mentioned like that. It just says they were giant Vijay in the previous lifetime, Jagai Maya. So I suppose they could probably, in one form, stay with Lord Chaitanya eternally. So they got expanded form there. So.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, like in India, it's a common norm that a lot of people they pray to Hanuman Ji. So people who are ardent devotees of Hanuman, in their next lives, do they actually end up becoming devotees of Lord Ram, or would they just stay with Hanuman?
It would depend on their conception of what they're doing. Like some may be just worshipping for material benefits or whatever like that, not really with genuine bhakti or whatever. But if they really understand Hanuman and how he is the servant of Rama, etc., fine, then they become like a follower of Hanuman, and then they realize Ramchandra and become a dasa or a servant like Hanuman.
Maharaj, in the four Vaishnava Sampradayas, is it correct in saying that Gaudiya, they give Ram, and the other Ramanuja Madhva Sampradayas, they don't give Ram?
No, there's prema all over the spiritual world, whether it's Vaikuntha or whatever like that. So through other sampradayas, they go to Vishnu, they go to Vaikuntha. The only way you can get in there is to have prema. of some sort. But it's usually Dasya Prema with Aishvarya mood. But it's Prema.
Maharaj, you mentioned about the importance of Gyan, especially for practitioners. It's more of a personal question, I guess.
Not Gyan in the sense of the impersonal Gyan.
Right. So just like
Bhagavad
Shastra Yukti is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, or even Vedanta mentions Shastra Yonivar. So you've translated so many books of the Acharyas. I just wanted to know, like personally, what you would recommend for those who have been in the movement. Of course, Bhagavad is always there.
Yeah.
But just in terms of approaching the Acharyas books, what would you mention to sort of start off with? Or
Well, it would depend on your particular desires, tastes, and needs. Some have philosophical needs, so they go to Sandarbhas or something like that. Those who have more rasa pastime needs, they can go to the poems of Rupa Goswami, the plays of Rupa Goswami, or Vishwanath Chakravarti's poetic works or whatever. If there's in Bhagavad, they go to the commentaries of Vishwanath or whatever like that. So it depends on your particular taste and your needs at the moment.
The Krishna's name, the activities that Krishna does, like Madhva and Keshwa, and if we chant that name, is it same equal to Hare Krishna, or is it different?
Yeah.
Like his activities name.
Well, all the forms of the Lord are actually one Lord, Supreme Lord. There's only one Bhagavan. And all the names of the Lord also are ultimately one with the Lord. So they're all non-different in that sense. But depending on our intentions also, they can change. So one name can mean Vishnu, it can mean Rama. The name Rama can mean Vishnu, it can mean Rama, it can mean Krishna. So depending on our intention also, when we chant these names, we can get different realizations. So one person chanting Hare Krishna or Hare Rama, he realizes Krishna. Another chanting Ram Ram Ram, he can realize Ramchandra. And some that are chanting Vishnu Sahasranam with the name Rama, they can realize Vishnu. So it also depends on the intention of the particular person. Because a name could mean all three or even 4 or 5 different forms of the Lord. Okay. Oh.
You were mentioning as well that it is important to distribute our movement, obviously, by sharing the name with other people, and also telling them about. So there's 2 ways. We have to chant the name, and we have to also speak with the knowledge.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask if you can maybe explain more. What is the importance of chanting the name for other people as well, and also what is the importance of sharing the knowledge of the wisdom?
Well, we have to develop a taste for the name ourselves, because obviously Lord Chaitanya is trying to deliver everybody. So individuals, we have to take up that process and attain the goal of prema. Right? So, and we do that through chanting the name. So we have, this is what our sadhana. So the name is used for our particular sadhana. So that's one aspect. But the other aspect is that the devotee himself is the instrument of the Lord for spreading bhakti. And the Lord does not come all the time. He comes once every yuga, maybe 500,000 years or a million years apart. So the main way in which bhakti, which comes from the spiritual world, can enter the spiritual world is through the devotees. So therefore, somebody has to take up that process of spreading bhakti in the world. So not only for Lord Chaitanya, but of course, in any particular time, the devotees are the main source. But if we're devotees for Lord Chaitanya, then we have to also act as devotees and be the mediums for spreading that bhakti around. So we spread that bhakti around, of course, by our own devotion plus holy name. So now we give the mercy to all jivas as part of that's part of our sadhana also. That's also one aspect of the holy name itself, because other mantras are secret, so it's only for yourself. You cannot preach your mantra, your Diksha mantra, to other people. It's for personal meditation and worship. The name is for your personal worship, but it's also for everybody else. So we can use it both ways, for our meditational purpose in developing ourselves, and for spreading Krishna consciousness or whatever. of course, we can spread without the name. We can spread, preaching, whatever. But also the name itself is useful in that respect. But the other aspect of the name is that without preaching, because if you preach to the faithless, it's aparad, so you can't preach Bhagavad-Gita to the faithless and hope, and it's called that preaching in one sense. So therefore, the other way is just explosion of the holy name, and then that's a way of preaching also. So the name functions in that way to preach to the faithful person and also to the unfaithful person.
Maharaj, Hare Krishna again. I wanted to ask, we always hear about the stressing on that when we're chanting the holy name, it should be offenseless, and we have been told about the 10 offenses to the holy name. So Maharaj, when we're chanting, we are very lucky if we are able to do one round of our japa offenselessly, which doesn't happen. It's only we can count that those number of holy names which are offenseless in our chanting. So we're hoping that one day, not in this life, maybe whenever Krishna will desire, Krishna will think that we are able to do that, we'll be able to do offenselessly. So does Krishna take account of our, maybe if I've done about 50 names of the Mahamantra offenselessly, does Krishna take notice of that?
Yeah. Well, offense is of two types. One is intentional offense, and particular things like, thinking that the name of Shiva and Brahma are equal to the name of Vishnu, or to think that the glories of the name are imagination, or to think that the results are all material. So those things generally we're not going to create offense. Of course, if you're ignorant, you would, but since we do have knowledge, then we're not going to commit those offenses as such. So the main offenses may be more accidental. We may offend a devotee accidentally, not on purpose. We may make a philosophical mistake, probably, like that, but not intentionally. Or we may be inattentive. Or the 10th one, too much material attachment. This was kind of a subjective thing, because everybody has some material attachment. But these things, we say, we can't absolutely, avoid them at a stage of we're not so advanced. But at least we're not intentionally committing those things. So we try to avoid as much as possible and not have inimical feelings towards Krishna and the devotees in the process of bhakti while we're doing it. That much we have to do.
Well, you mentioned the Diksha mantra, and from what I've understood, Goswami explains that our Diksha mantra is the Gopal mantra.
18 syllable mantra.
Right. So, and then he talks about the mantra Mayi aspect within the Satsandarbhas. He gives a description of, as you mentioned, Krishna's form. So when we're chanting our Gayatris, is that considered technically as mantra Mayi Upasan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yeah. That technically, that's what it's to be used for. One thing. The other, of course, is through Archana. We use the mantra also when we offer to the deity, etc. So those two things can be used. And I think in Raganuga Bhakti they will also use the same mantra for Raganuga, whatever like that. But primarily now, our emphasis is upon the sadhana of chanting Hare Krishna. So our predominant, concentration is in that direction rather than that. So it becomes less important for us at this stage, at least.
So, during preaching, we come across a lot of people who are actually chanting 16 rounds, but they're not initiated. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, they're following Prabhupada's instructions. Mm-hmm. Will they still be benefited in terms of going back?
Well, if you look at Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says the name does not depend on Diksha. So that's one of the things about the name. It can be given up freely, you can chant it, and you can progress whatever. And even if it's done accidentally, as in the case of Ajivan, who was very sinful, still he got effect. So if you're chanting intentionally the name, repeatedly, whatever, obviously you're going to get good effect. And if you have devotion, fine, great. And if knowledge, very good. Yeah. But of course, if it's within Sampradaya and the teachings are proper, very good, then you can also get prema.
So if they just follow Prabhupada without taking initiation, they still get prema?
That's possible in one sense, but I think once plays Jiva Goswami, Vishnu, maybe says you should not avoid the Diksha also purposely. because we do see that within our sampradaya there's been a tradition also. The acharyas, they also took diksha. Lord Chaitanya took diksha, Nityananda took diksha, Advaita took diksha, so they all took diksha also. They never avoided it. But it has become, for many, only useful in deity worship. And for some, of course, in Raganuga, they could use the mantra, etc. You know, do Raganuga Bhakti. But still, there's an emphasis upon, chanting the holy name as the main process. And if for some reason you cannot get your diksha or whatever, still, Krishna is very merciful, and the holy name gives all success.
Then how do we understand this statement of Prabhupada when Prabhupada said, just by reading my books, they're initiated by me?
Well, that's taking initiation in a more broad sense. When I take an initiation, I mean getting that particular mantra, the secret mantra, the 18-syllable mantra. But if you want to say diksha in a larger sense, yes, if you get the mercy of Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prabhupada in any way, then that's ultimate also.
Just to add to that, I mean, so that means we don't need to have a guru. We can do it if we're on the right path.
Well, what I said is that we need name and we need knowledge.
Name and knowledge.
Yeah. So where are you going to get the knowledge from? Of course, you say, "I'll just study the books."
You can study the books. You can have people in your circle guide you.
So we should get somebody who we can actually consult with if we have a little problem understanding something and get guidance from that person. So generally, in that sense, we have a Shiksha Guru of some sort.
Yes, but we don't need to have the official guru.
Well, Diksha Guru. Diksha Guru. But yeah, at least a Shiksha should be there. But as I said again, generally, it should not be avoided also to take a Diksha Guru. And in our Sampradaya, they did take Diksha, so
sure.
We also follow that. But as I said, in absolute sense, no, Harinam is independent. Okay. Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Bhanu Maharaj.
Jai.